Hi, this is a remainder problem that came in CLAT in the year 2013. Now, my suggestion will always be when you're approaching a quant question, always try to glean as much as you can from the question itself. For example, here, the first word that will catch your eye is the word remainder. Right? Remainder should immediately connote the process of division. Okay, so we're talking about a division in this question. The other word that should automatically come to mind when you're talking about division is the word divide, right? A number which divides, right? So that's the phrase which you should think about. A number that divides is also called a factor. Or more commonly, you'll also see the word divisor. Okay, so two words, factor or divisor, but for me, the word factor is important. Okay, so we're talking about a division and a factor. Now in a remainder, or rather a division problem, the main formula that you use, pretty much the only approach you should use is go to the division identity. The division identity is shown here on the screen. It basically says dividend, the number being divided, is equal to divisor, the number doing the division, into quotient plus the remainder. Right? And then to illustrate this, think of, let's say, dividing 85 by 7. So I'll do 7 ones are 7, 15, 7 twos are 14, right? And we get the remainder as 1. So if I try and use these numbers in this formula, dividend is the number being divided, so that's 85. Divisor is the number doing the division, so that's 7. Into quotient, so that's 12 in this case, plus the remainder, that's the number 1. And what do I get? 12 into 7, 84. 84 plus 1 is indeed 85, right? So that identity seems to work fine. Now go back to the question. The question talks about a division and it says, we want forget the word greatest for now, we want a number which divides 926, which means 926 is being divided. So I'll start with 926 as the dividend. This is being divided by something. I'll assume that to be n. And I have no idea what the quotient will be. I'll assume it to be a variable, let's say a. But I do know the remainder. The remainder needs to be 2. Okay, so 926 is equal to na plus 2. Obviously, the next step is to bring the 2 to the other side because we want to find the value of n. So 926 less 2 becomes 924. So 924 would equal n times a. And immediately notice what is n? Come back to this word. N is a divisor. If n is a divisor, it's the factor. So n is a factor of 924. The second condition, a similar condition, is that the same number which when it divides 2013, which means 2013 or 2313 rather, is the dividend. And this is divided by the same number n is the divisor. And the quotient will be a different number. Let's say that's b. And we'll have to add the remainder to it. Remainder is 3 in this case, right? And obviously a similar step, we'll bring 3 to the other side. So this becomes 2310, and this will now equal n into p. And here too, I'll think the same thing. N is a factor of 2310. So we have n is a factor of two numbers, 924 and 2310, which means n is a factor that is common to both these numbers, which means n is a common factor. And if you now go back and read the question, it says we want the greatest such number, which means we want the highest common factor. Of which numbers? We want the highest common factors of the numbers we just identified, 924 and 2310. I hope you recall how to calculate the highest common factor, but I'm going to show you nonetheless. So the easiest way when you have big numbers like this is the successive division method. So you start with the bigger number. So we start with 2310 and you divide it by the smaller number, which is 924 in this case. We can see that the second multiple will work. So 924 into 2 is 1848. Now let's go ahead and subtract. 10 minus 8 leaves 2. 10 minus 4, obviously 1 has gone for carry. 10 minus 4 leaves me 6. 2 after the carry. 12 minus 8 is 4. And 1 minus 1 becomes 0. So 452 is the remainder. Now next step we do here is bring this and put that in the next as the next dividend, which means I'll put 924 here. 462 into 2, as it turns out, is exactly 924. 24, which means the remainder is 0. And the moment you get remainder as 0, the divisor in that step is called the HCF. So the answer to this question is actually 462. In this question, there is another thing worth knowing, which is that this came in the CLAT and none of the options was this number 462. What you had to do in that case was, if this number divides it, the next sort of logical solution is that if this number is able to divide these two numbers and leave these remainders, then a factor of this number 462 will also be able to do the same. And it turns out that a factor of this number is 154, if I'm not wrong. And this was there in the CLAT. Right? So there you go. That's a little bit of trivia for you guys as well. Thank you for watching this video.